Hi everyone, it's Miss Rossi. Today we're going to be creating artwork inspired by artist Jen Stark. What you will be needing today are your Jen Stark papers from your art folder. This should be a nice assortment of all different colored pieces of construction paper. You're also going to need a scissor, a glue stick, a pencil, and an eraser. We don't need our label, so we can take that off, and we can also very carefully take all of our papers off of our staple. Today we're going to be making a dripping collage inspired by the work of Jen Stark. So we got to look at all of her different abstract paintings and paper collages and see the different ways she used organic and geometric shapes in specific orders where they're either getting bigger or smaller to create these radiating designs of color. Now today we're going to make our own kind of big drippy cut paper collage using organic shapes. So I'm going to pull out my black and white paper, and then I should have all the colors of the rainbow here that I can use. If you have other colors of construction paper at home that you want to use as well, you can always add extra colors to your picture. So we're going to make a big dripping organic shape collage. What we're going to have to do is cut our papers so they get smaller and smaller and smaller to be able to glue them and stack them up so we can see all the different layers and colors of our paper. So the first thing you're going to do is pick whatever color you want on the bottom of your stack. It's going to kind of be like our base, and everything else is going to be built off of that color. I think I'm going to use black. So I'm going to take my black paper. I'm going to turn it so it's a little bit longer going left to right. You can decide if you want a really long drippy pattern or if you want something a little wider. I think I want mine to be wider. So I'm turning my paper so it is longest going left to right. With my pencil, I'm going to draw a line coming down from the top edge of my paper. And this is going to be our big drippy wavy line. Now I want this to be pretty big. I want it to take up almost all of my black paper. Now it can go up and back down to make our dripping design. I do not want it to touch that bottom edge of my paper, but I want it to get pretty close. This is going to be our base. It's going to be our biggest part of our layer here. So I want it to be nice and big. I don't know how well you guys can see that shape. Well, you can kind of see it on there. So I'm coming down from the top, wiggling up and down until I get back on the other side, again connecting at that top edge. I did not touch the sides. I left a little bit of space on both edges, and I left a little bit of space along the bottom. Now that I drew my first drip design, I am going to grab my scissor and cut it out along my pencil line. Now I'm going to try my best to cut this out in one shot. I do not want to cut it out into a bunch of little pieces. I want to be left with 2 pieces of paper once I am done. So I'm just carefully following along with my pencil line. And what I'm left with once I'm done cutting is my dripping design. And then also almost like that border of our drip. So we have our border paper and we have our actual dripping pattern. I am going to put my dripping pattern to the side, and I'm going to keep my frame, that border paper that we cut it out from. And I'm going to pick the next color that I want. Now again, we're going from the bottom up. So I think I'm going to do mine in rainbow order. I have my black. I'm going to do purple next. And then by the time I get to the end, I'll have red all the way at the top. So I'm going to take my black frame, that black border that I just cut my dripping design out from, and I'm going to rest it on top of my purple paper so I can line it up along the edges just like that. Now with my pencil, I'm going to trace that same shape of my black paper, but I'm going to leave a gap so I can still see some purple space in between. I'm going to follow that curved black paper all the way along, following those bumps and lumps that make up that shape. But again, I'm leaving a space in between. I'm not tracing right up against that black paper. I'm leaving almost like a sidewalk space in between as I am tracing. But I'm still following that same general shape that I had before. Now doing this will help us create smaller and smaller versions of the same shape as we continue to cut it out. I can put my black frame to the side, and now with my scissor, I'm going to cut out my purple shape. Again, I'm going to cut it out in one continuous piece because I want to save that border and I want to save my whole dripping design here. So I'm just going along that pencil line and cutting out my shape. There we go. And what you should be left with again is your drip design and also that border edge paper that you started with. I'm going to lay my purple piece right on top of my black piece, lining up that one edge. And now I can see that I was able to successfully make a smaller version of my black shape. You can see now we left that space there when we were drawing our purple while tracing it on the black paper, so that now we have a nice black border that is framing our purple paper down here. So I'm going to leave these two pieces to the side, and I'm going to use my purple frame, my purple border here, this time to make my next color. So the next color I'm going to use is blue. I'm going to grab my blue paper. Just like before, I'm laying my purple paper out on my blue paper, lining up the edges as best as I can. And I am going to grab my pencil and do the same thing that I did before. So I am going to trace this same purple shape that I have here, leaving that space in between. So I'm going to start a little bit over, leaving a sidewalk space of blue in between my purple paper and my pencil line. And I am just going to go around, again, following that shape. Now I can fit in this section right now, but it's going to start to get too skinny and I might not be able to fit inside there, leaving a big enough space with my next paper. And I'll show you what we can do if that happens. Like, I don't think I can get all the way down in that space. Maybe I can, and it's just going to be pretty tiny. Let's see. We don't want our pencil line to touch because then it's going to be a little too hard to cut. Like in this section, I don't think I can get down there and back up without my pencil line touching. So I am just making almost like a little V shape where I can't fit in, and then continuing on with the rest of the shape there. I'm going to move my purple frame to the side, grab my scissor, and cut out my blue paper. Again, I'm going to save that blue frame, and now I can lay my blue dripping piece on top of my stack here. So I had my black paper that I started with, then I had my purple paper, and now I have my blue paper going right on top there. And you can see the way that I cut my blue paper left enough space so I can still see that purple paper showing through. I could put those to the side and leave my blue border here. I'm going to grab some green paper next. Again, you can use whatever colors you would like. It does not have to be in the same order as mine. And I'm going to do that same thing. I lined up my blue frame on my green paper. I'm going to draw so I leave a nice big space in between my pencil line and that blue paper as I am tracing on the green here. And now here's what I was talking about before. This space is way too small for my pencil to get in there. So I'm just going to make a little V shape and bounce up and around, continuing on. So same thing down here. I'm not going to be able to fit in there, so a little V shape will do it. Same as over here. Now that my shape is drawn, I can put my blue paper to the side, grab my green paper, and start to cut out my shape. And I can grab my other pieces and I can lay out my green one on top and see how it's going to look. That's looking pretty cool. And if you ever have any issue where maybe your top color is covering the color below it a little bit, like if my green was coming out too far and I couldn't see the blue all the way around, I could always just trim my green paper a little bit to fix it. There we go. So now I'm going to do that same process with all of my other colors until I finish the rainbow. So I'm going to grab my yellow paper next, using my green frame, and then so on with the other colors. Again, still doing that same process where I'm lining it up, tracing, cutting, and moving on to the next one. All right, now I have all of my colors cut out. The only paper I didn't use is my white paper. I'm gonna hold on to that one for right now. And I am just going to line up all of my papers in the order that I cut them. All right, and that is my stack of my cut organic shapes to make my dripping design. My papers get smaller as my layers go up towards the top, so my red is the smallest piece, and then they are getting larger until my black paper all the way at the bottom. I'm going to grab my glue stick and I'm going to glue all of these papers down. If you can still see any of your pencil lines and you want to erase any of those, you can always go in with your eraser before you start to glue and just clean up any areas where you can still see those marks, or you can leave them because it's probably not that noticeable. But I am going to start with my purple paper and gluing that one on to my black paper. So I'm going to put some glue along my purple paper so I can stick it down. I'm lining it up with the top edge and making sure it's mostly centered on there, and then pressing it down so all of those little sections stick. Then I can move on to my next paper, so I can grab my blue one, add some glue on the back. You want to make sure you know which side is the back. That's why it is important to lay it out before you glue it, because if you put glue on the wrong side, your shapes are not going to line up. It's going to look a little funky. And I know I put it on the right side if when I hold my paper out, it's going to line up, leaving that gap everywhere. If I put the glue on the other side and try to line it up like this, you can see how it doesn't line up perfectly anymore. So check that before you start adding your glue. Lining it up again with that top edge, making sure it's mostly centered, and then pressing it down. Then I can go on to my next one so I can see if that is going to be the right position. That looks better than if I were to try and go like this. You can see how here it doesn't line up anymore. So I know I want this side facing down so I can put the glue on this side. Lining it up at the top and pressing it down. So I'm going to do that with all of my layers until I make it to my red piece. And that is my collage all finished. I'm going to cap my glue stick for a moment. And I'm going to grab all of my border pieces. Now, if you really want to get crazy with it, you can also glue your border pieces together in the opposite order. So if I were to do this, I would start with my red piece on the bottom, because that is going to be my biggest piece since I cut out the smallest shape. Then I could glue on my orange piece, and then my yellow piece. And we can get the opposite effect happening from what we've created on our other paper. And then this one, our black piece, will be our final piece on top. And these are easier to line up. You can just hold it and tap it on the table so that flat bottom edge will kind of line them all up for you. So if you'd like, you can glue these papers together as well, so you can get almost like the opposite version of your drip collage. So I think I'm going to glue these together as well. So I am, again, just going to start with that red paper, glue my orange paper onto it, and build up. And just like before, I want to check which side I want to put the glue on before I actually start adding glue to it, so I don't make a mistake. And those are both of my collages all done. Now with this one, I do have that hole here where that red was cut out. So I am going to just take my white paper and glue that whole stack on there just to fill in that space. You do not have to, but I think it just kind of makes the whole thing a little bit more sturdy. And my white paper does look a little bit bigger, so if I want, I can even take my scissor and just trim off that edge that I can still see. And those are my Jen Stark organic shape dripping collages all finished. Once you're done with your project, you can take a photo or video of it and upload it on my Canvas page. So whether you just did your first stack and that is it, or you did both, I would love to see what you guys have made. Try your best, have fun, and get creative, and I'll see you soon. Bye!